to our Neighborhood Food Network call with my trusty sidekick, Ann Temple. Thank you, Ann, who brings on some expert guests to answer questions about growing food and creating national food security one street at a time, okay? Also creating community, creating health, opting out of the toxic GMO system. And Ann brings on guests that can talk to us and answer our questions. So if you have any questions about growing food, start thinking about what do you need to do right now. And Ann, you can take it away.
Okay, so tonight we're talking to Polly McGann and Victor, am I going to pronounce your name right? Zaderej?
Zaderej. It's not as bad as it looks.
Okay, anyway, so they are Polly and Victor have developed the Happy Leaf LED high efficiency indoor LED grow lights. And I met them a couple of years ago. Actually, and I met them the year before that at the Madison Garden Expo, and I have bought his lights and they work fantastic. And he's so passionate about his product, and I'm going to obviously let him explain it, but they're a state-of-the-art horticulture grow light based on his in-depth expertise with solid state lighting. And his Happy Leaf LED is a company that produces commercial quality grow lights that help customers improve the production of their diverse crops. He says, we don't just sell lights, we engineer them ourselves from the ground up to provide optimal results. And I had a great time talking with them, and I can't believe I missed them this year. And he said, we're committed to providing the highest level of customer service and making ourselves readily available to provide information and answer your questions. And I can attest to that. I own 2 sets of his life. I own one of your really little ones, which is adorable. And then I have the bigger one. And like I said, I'm sorry I missed you this year, but you're going to talk to us about your lights. And you also had mentioned something about being able to grow like full-size tomatoes indoors.
Yeah, so, actually what our passion is teaching people how to grow. It just turns out that lighting was the thing that was missing. So I'm actually hoping to teach you, or not teach you, but answer any questions that you may have about, growing anything from microgreens up to tomatoes and cucumbers. So that's really what I'm here to do. And lighting is an important part of it. But also I want to mention to you that we do have a YouTube channel. It's Happy Leaf LED. And if you go to that, there's probably 30 videos that'll literally walk you through growing anything from microgreens to lettuce to herbs to tomatoes.
What is the YouTube channel?
I'm gonna put it up there.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just Happy Leaf LED. Yeah, if you just put it in the search, it'll show up.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's tons of good information on there. But, I do want to ask just some questions. What would you like to learn about? I mean, how much time do we have? I could spend hours.
We have about another 28 minutes. Usually
Well,
we go till 8 o'clock.
Usually
28
go on to 40.
Okay, well, I have till 8 o'clock, but Ann can go overboard
Okay.
if we need to. But we
Okay.
would first, we want to see the lighting, and we want to know, how did you get into this? Why do you love growing? Tell us a little bit about
So I've been a gardener for 35 years, let's say, mostly outdoor gardening. And I just enjoyed it. And every year I try to do more and more. And I'm also an engineer, so I'm always curious about how to do things better. So about 12, 13 years ago, I worked for a company called Molex, and I designed electronics there. And one year we started our lighting group there, and we had a customer who came in and says, "Can you design would do a great job for growing food indoors." Or cannabis at that time too, like 6, 7, 8 years ago. So everybody was interested in growing cannabis. So what happened is we designed a light with a little magnetic puck on it, and friends, relatives would basically ask, "Where do I get those?" And Molex would sell you like 10,000 of them. So we said, you know what? Polly and I said, let's just start a company. We'll buy these and resell them to individuals that wanted to grow. Within 6 months, my company, Molex, basically said, we're not going to make those anymore. So we started out on our own. We designed our own lights. We're now actually shipping our 8th generation of light. I work very closely with a professor at Purdue, that they're one of the leading universities that does research on indoor lighting Michigan State is another one that does a lot of that work. And so I work with that professor. So we've really come up with incredibly efficient ways of growing food, because their whole objective is to figure out heights that can be very, very successful for indoor growing. So they're using our lights for their research in their greenhouses and their vertical gardens. We have various projects in the works with them on growing indoor tomatoes completely under lights. So, so this professor at Purdue has helped us really optimize the spectrums that we use. So I'll talk just for a few minutes about lighting, but you know, there's three things that you need to grow food very successfully indoors. You need water, you need nutrients, and you need light. And light was always the thing that we took for granted. You know, we always said, well, we got the sun, we got a south-facing window. But the truth is, most of us that live in northern climates don't have nearly enough sun coming in to a south-facing window because our days are short. There's a lot of cloudy days. In fact, January of this year, there may have been 2 or 3 sunny days in northern Illinois, and our windows block 75% of the light that hits them. So people just don't realize all those things. So when you put a plant under a light in front of a south-facing window, you won't get really any kind of significant growth. So what we found is that having high quality light that has the right quantity of light and the right quality of light. There's two things about light that are really important. And the amount of light you need to grow a plant to full maturity, you can't get with a fluorescent. You can't get with a lot of these Chinese lights that you buy on Amazon and Home Depot. And the quality of light, that ratio of red to blue to green, is absolutely critical. So Professor Namali at Purdue found that you want about 60% of the light to be red, about 10 to 15% blue, and about 20-25% green. If you get that ratio just right.
One second. I just want to point out, isn't that a surprise that nature loves diversity?
Yep.
Not just one kind of light. Yeah.
Also, the red, the blue, the different colored lights are required at different times of the growing, like at the beginning, isn't it?
Not necessarily. That was sort of the old thinking. You know, in the past, people said, well, I want a blue light for initial growth and then red light later for flowering. But that's when you really couldn't create light as efficiently or as, I would say, the right spectrum. You couldn't create that spectrum. You could either get blue light with a high pressure sodium, well, with a metal halide, or a red light with a high pressure sodium. But now with LEDs, you can get all of that in one light that's very efficient, and it can look like a full spectrum light. You know, you hear a lot of people talk about full spectrum. Because all that means, that's actually a marketing term, because all that means is it looks like a white light. And the way that a lot of these Chinese suppliers that make these so-called grow lights make full spectrum is they actually take a blue LED and put a yellow phosphor on it. It's called phosphor converted white, and they make it look white, but it's actually blue, and that makes the plants very short and stubby. So Professor Namali at Purdue found, in fact, right here, stop at that spectrum right there that's on your screen. That's what our lights look like. Very high levels of red, some blue, and green in between. And if you take a look at that, the light looks like a 2900 Kelvin white light, but it's actually giving the plants exactly what it needs, that very high level of red and some level of blue. And if you have that kind of ratio of red to blue to green, you can get 250% or 2.5 times more plant mass that absorbs nutrients very well than you can using the white LEDs that you would get from typical lights that are made in China.
Did you say 2.5?
We make all of our lights.
Did you say 2.5 times? Did you say
2.5 times? 250%.
More mass?
That's right. The plants can be 2.5 times bigger and absorb nutrients really, really efficiently. And the other thing I wanted to point out is if any of you really want to get into all the details of how to grow all these methods that we'll talk about here in a minute, and also all about lighting. There's a book called Grow Lettuce in Your Living Room that's available on Amazon. I co-wrote it with Dan Shiras, who's written 41 other books. And we spent 5 years researching all of these different methods of indoor gardening. And we just said, you know what, we're passionate about this, we enjoy it. Let's educate as many people out there as we can that want to grow their own food at home. And I think it's a very good investment for anyone who's interested in actually growing their own food at home. And the only other thing I also want to mention about lights is you hear a lot of people talk about color temperature of lights or lumens or even number of watts that you use in a light. All of that is actually meaningless. You really want to use the minimum amount of watts and the maximum amount of what's called PAR energy, which is photosynthetically active radiation. That's the energy plants need to grow. Things like Kelvin temperature and lumens mean also nothing to the plant. That's strictly how light looks to our eyes. If it's really high levels of foot candles or lux, or lumens for that matter, that's how bright the light is to your eyes. But your eyes are very sensitive to green and yellow light, but the plants want that red and they want that blue, a little bit of it. And a lumen doesn't pick up any of that in the way that lumens are measured. So disregard, the way that they measure white light as being important to the plant. So anyways, that's the discussion about light. What I want to do is also talk about methods of indoor gardening that are so simple. There's a professor by the name of Bernie Kratke, Professor Bernard Kratke. He grew up actually in Wisconsin, right between Madison and Milwaukee. And I've gotten to know Bernie as a friend. We talk reasonably often. And he's actually going to be in Wisconsin visiting his brother this summer. And he's going to come down and visit me. I've never actually formally met him, but he got his PhD from Purdue and he taught at University of Hawaii for 40 years. And he came up with an ingenious way to basically be able to grow almost any kind of leafy device, any leafy type plant. And yep, there's a picture of Bernie. Yep. He's 78 years old now, phenomenal guy. But anyways, he developed a method where he lived in Hawaii, and the problem with Hawaii is that the soil is terrible and the nutrient level in the soil is non-existent. So he came up with this method. Now it's called the Kratke method, but it's also known as passive hydroponics. And we modified it somewhat and put it into a canning jar. So if you take a largemouth canning jar, put a net pot with some clay pellets in it, put some seeds in it, fill it with nutrient-filled water, and basically within 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to be eating your herbs, your leafy greens, your lettuces, anything that you actually eat as a leafy plant, you can grow very, very quickly and affordably. To give you an idea, is you can grow a nice big head of lettuce for about 25 cents. And the same thing in the store costs you $3. And you can pick it when you want it. You can grow exactly what you want. There's no herbicides, there's no pesticides. It's a very simple, easy way to grow.
I do have a bunch of your nets. I do have a bunch of your clay balls and a bunch of your plastic pots, and it does. You just throw the seeds on and.
Yeah.
And depending on the kind of lettuce, if you're growing romaine lettuce or like ukulele lettuce, you can pick the outer leaves.
So Polly just ran downstairs into my basement.
Yeah, you can pick the outer leaves. You don't have to pick the whole head. You can pick the outer leaves and it'll still keep growing.
Yeah.
Is that basil?
This is basil right here. So you could see the roots in the, can you see the roots in the bottom of the jar? Yep. So basically you start with this canning jar, and I'm going to unscrew it here. So this is what the net pot looks like, and it sort of looks like a Santa Claus beard as far as the roots. And what Bernie found is that the roots will follow the water level down, and the water level will come back down to the lower level here. And when you fill it up, you only fill it to the bottom of the net pot. It's a little hard to probably see on the screen, But so the roots at the top get their oxygen in this area. And if, as long as you leave oxygen in there, you don't have to have pumps and motors and electricity like you do in a conventional hydroponic system. I stayed away from hydroponics, active hydroponics, because of all the pumps and motors and expense and noise and constantly monitoring pH. What Bernie came up with is an ingenious way of doing that. You can see this is a head of lettuce that's ready to be harvested. And that costs less than 25 cents to grow that big head of lettuce. And that includes all the electricity, the seeds, the nutrients, everything you need to grow. And you can pick whatever seeds you want from wherever you want. So one of the methods that we teach in the book is this method. We call it the Kratky method for Bernie. And another method that we teach is how to grow microgreens. So we have, in fact, Paul, do you mind to go getting a tray of microgreens? We have microgreens in the basement. And we use this little tray of, that literally it's like $9 or $10 for this tray that you can get on Amazon. You put some nutrient water in it, you put your microgreen seeds in it, and within 8 to 10 days, you're eating literally 40 to 50 varieties of different types of microgreens. So I've got
Do you put the
broccoli
clay?
microgreen.
Do you put
No.
the clay in there, just the seeds in the water?
Well, no, not exactly. You'll see here in a second.
Okay.
Basically, the tray has 3 parts to it. The bottom is, it's typically, the tray is about, I think, 8 by 10 inches. It's like a regular container, and you put your water in that, and then there's a white, a sort of a upper tray on it that's above the water level. And then you put a paper towel on top of that, and you put your seeds on top of that paper towel, and it should be wet. Then you put a lid on top of that. Oh, actually, here it is. Polly just brought up. If you take a look, can you see my tray of microgreens?
Yeah, if you pull it back a little, it's a little blurry.
It needs to be by your face because it's trying, the screen is trying to
it's
identify your
trying-
face.
okay.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go. So these are
Beautiful.
broccoli microgreens.
Oh,
And there's I'm going to lift up the tray, and it may get a little wet here. Oh, I'm spilling water. Sorry. Anyways, there's 3 parts to it. And you need to make sure you get trays with lids on them, because that's what allows you to, basically, it's like a dome that allows them to germinate really quickly. So they'll typically germinate within 3 to 4 days. And then within 8 to 10 days, you're typically eating microgreens, things like kale microgreens. And there's probably about 10 varieties of microgreens that within 8 to 10 days, you're ready to eat them. So that's
And how
sort
much,
of
how
the
much does it cost for
second
this?
method.
How much does it cost for the seeds to grow a tray of microgreens like that?
Well, that's what's surprising, is it's very little. It's probably about 25 cents for the seeds. And the reason is, if you go to Johnny's Seeds, if you go to Johnny's Seeds, you can buy bags of microgreens for about $25. And that, if you bought those in little packets like you normally buy them, the amount of seeds that's in that bag would be $400. But what happens is the seed companies get seeds that are last year's seeds, and they basically package them and sell them as microgreen seeds. So the germination rate may not be 98%, but it may be 95%. But there you go. There's pictures of microgreens. And John Seeds has a I think a link on there that can go, it'll show you like all the different varieties. Though I think you're showing it right there.
Yep.
They have all these different varieties of microgreens. And if you type in, just hit the broccoli microgreens, there you go. So the prices have gone up a little bit. But let's just say you bought a 1/4 pound of seeds for $18. That'll last a couple, probably, for microgreens for a year. I mean, it is just amazing how much you can get out of
$18 for a year's worth of
pound.
microgreens. Now, if you were to be paying, let's just say $5.99 for one little container of microgreens from the grocery store, how much would you be spending each week? Because you'll probably get more than that each week. More, you get more than
Absolutely.
one.
So I had a customer that actually said she bought microgreens, and she said that tray of microgreens that you're showing me would be $30 in the store. And I estimated it cost 75 cents to grow it. So that's the thing about microgreens. Not only do they taste good, but they're extremely nutritious, but they also are so easy to grow. And the return, that's why so many people are getting interested in growing microgreens at home and selling them to restaurants or to local grocery stores, because you can do it so quickly and so easily. We have a customer called Closed Loop Farms in Chicago, and they have they provide microgreens for 120 restaurants in Chicago, and they have about 200 of our lights. And every week they're delivering. They've been one of our first big commercial customers about 4 or 5 years ago now, and they're still using the lights that they got from us probably 5 or 6 years ago, actually.
So,
So Closed Loop Farms.
we had a
Yes.
question in the chat about the paper towels.
Hang on 1 second. Before you get to that, I just want to point
Sure.
out that it's a savings of $1,542 per year. So if you want to save money, if you want a
Yeah.
vacation for your family and you're currently buying microgreens from the grocery store, this is one way to do it. It's to grow your own and save over $1,500 by growing your own microgreens. That's amazing. I've got to
That's
do
a
this.
good
I have a
calculation, Zen.
I have a
I must
vegan,
remember
yeah,
that one.
I have a vegan son. He eats organic, all organic vegan.
Yeah.
It's costing us an arm and a leg. It costs so much money to feed him. He's got to start growing his own microgreens. That's just the
There
way
you
it's
go.
going to go right now. Thank you. All right, Lisa has a question.
We did, if you go to the YouTube channel, we did post a video on growing microgreens. It's sort of like the synopsis of our chapter number 4. That's on our YouTube channel. So it goes through about a 15-minute video on how to set it all up, shows you the trays, where to get the seeds, everything.
That's
So
great.
anyways, so one of the other methods that we teach is growing in large buckets. So if you had if you have certain types of things that you like growing a lot of, we were growing cilantro. No, it's parsley. We were eating a lot of parsley about a year ago. And so we said, let's just grow a bunch of parsley in a bucket. And so we had a parsley plant that grew for like 14 or 15 months in a bucket. And so we'd pick parsley whenever we wanted it. And that works really well. So the growing in a bucket, there you go, how to grow microgreens from seed. And then that's a video on peppers that I think you have up there too, jalapeno peppers. But if you want to grow a larger quantity of anything, basically do it in a bucket, and you can get net pots that drop in and snap right into a bucket as well. But again, the whole key is light. There's a lot of different kinds of lights out there, a lot of hype, but your results will be incredibly good if you get
Look
the
how
right
many
kind of light.
peppers you're getting out of that. Look how many peppers you're getting.
120 off that plant.
120 peppers.
So
Holy mackerel.
yeah,
My
on this
son is,
particular video, I think there were 39, but then over the next few months, I think we picked a total of 120.
my son is
So-
having us pay $4 per pepper now at the grocery store. I mean, maybe not ones this small, but they
Yeah.
cost money. Peppers cost a lot of money. This is great.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, absolutely.
All right.
So, and the last method that we talk a lot about in the book is how to grow things like root plants, tomatoes. This year, my big project is to come up with more varieties of cucumbers. So you can grow cucumbers indoors under lights. We've been eating them here for the last month or so. The key with cucumbers is they need to be parthenocarpic, which means that they're all female cucumbers. They don't require pollination. So if you type in parthenocarpic, go to Totally Tomatoes, which is up in Wisconsin, and type that in, you'll see a variety of cucumbers that are that. And tomatoes are also, we've been growing indoor tomatoes for the last 4 or 5 years. The tomato that's grown on the International Space Station was developed with Totally Tomatoes in Wisconsin and Purdue. It's called Little Red Robin. So if you ever wonder what kind of tomatoes they're growing in the space station, Little Red Robin is the one that they're growing. There's another one that's very similar to that called Sweet and Neat. They're both very similar. I can't even tell much difference between them. They're not a big tomato. I used to grow larger tomatoes, and it's just not as satisfying because you get, a dozen, bigger tomatoes, but they take a long time to grow. And yeah, if you type in their search, type in Little Red Robin, and you'll see the tomato variety pop up on their website. And then if you want to grow root plants, so if you want to grow things like beets, carrots, radishes, turnips, there you go. There's a little birdie red robin. And that's the tomato. And they're about an inch and a quarter in diameter. There you go. It says an inch and a quarter. It's not a big plant, 12 inches maybe on the low side. Mine got to be maybe more like 18 to 20 inches. And they produce prolifically. I've had hundreds of tomatoes off there, and they taste great. And so for indoor tomatoes for the winter, Little Red Robin is a great one. That's the same thing they're doing in the space station. If you want to go radishes, another good one to grow would be French breakfast is a really great radish. It's about that long. It grows quickly, tastes great, very mild. Beets you can grow indoors, but I grow those in what I call self-watering pots. So they don't require water from the top. You water from the bottom. There's a company called Bloom, BLOEM in Michigan that makes a variety of self-watering pots. There's another one called a tomato trellis that's made, that's a little bigger. It's about 3 feet by 18 inches. And you fill that with a mixture of coconut coir and vermiculite. And if it's a, soft, fluffy, yeah, there you go, French breakfast, excellent radish. And then if you grow it in a mixture of cocoa coir and vermiculite, you can use exactly the same nutrients for all of these methods. So I consider to be all of these passive hydroponics because they don't require dirt. And as soon as you bring dirt in your house, you're going to get bugs. So that was really the reason that I even started looking at this. Polly said, you got to find a way to get rid of bugs. So we started looking
we have
at
people
these.
that want to know if you're not using dirt, how do you get your nutrients? And then I'm going to have to log off because I have to meet somebody, and Anne's going to have, we have a whole bunch more questions. We hope you can stay for another 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's about a dozen different types of nutrients that we've tested, and some of them are considered organic, some are called synthetic, hydroponic nutrients, and you mix it into the water, and you use that, and you pour the water either into the lower, like in the self-watering containers in the bottom, or you fill your canning jar with the nutrient water, and that the plant gets its nutrients in the water right up front.
Which brand of nutrients? Which brand of nutrients do you recommend?
There's about a dozen of them that we've used. The one that I always tell people to start with is called MaxiGrow.
Oh yeah, we saw that on your website.
Yeah, there's one called
we showed a picture of that on your website, MaxiGrow.
Yep. That's the one that we like to tell people to start with because it's one part and it's really easy. But there are many, many others that you can use. We don't advocate any specific one, but we tell you which ones we've tried with good luck.
And what about water? Do you recommend obviously non-chlorinated?
Yeah, you want to stay from if it's chlorinated, that could be a problem. And then also, but you can leave that out for a couple of days on the counter and that chlorine will be gone. The other thing is if you have salt in your water from water softeners, you may want to use your outdoor spigot because most likely that's not water softened. A lot of people ask if my well water is going to be good enough, and I would say 90% of the time it is. You want it to be slightly acidic. You want the pH to be anywhere from, let's just say, 5.5 to 6.5. You don't want it to be alkaline. You don't want to be above 7. Now, when you typically add the nutrients, that will drop the pH anyways. So that, then you can measure the pH, but you only really have to do that the first time to make sure that your water that you have in your house is good. what I always tell people, if you're not sure, get some either DI water or a reverse osmosis water, and then try that side by side with your regular house water. And as long as they both work similarly, you should be fine.
Okay, and
So-
so somebody wanted to know, we do have a lot of questions here. Somebody wanted to know about the paper towels. Do you buy the unbleached paper towels? And
I just use the towels that I have on my countertop. A lot of times these trays do come with these sheets of paper that they claim are made for, microgreens. I'll use those up, and then I just use the regular paper towels that, we buy in the store. I don't think that there's any kind of bleach or anything in them that I know of, but just a real simple paper towel that gets wet, put your seeds on it, spread them around. And if you want to go to a website too, that also goes through the planting process of microgreens, Fruition Seeds, Petra at Fruition Seeds. We've worked with her for years. They use our lights, and Petra does some great videos on setting up and growing microgreens as well. So Fruition, they're in upstate New York. So that was one question. And are there
somebody
more
was asking
questions
about the,
that are on your list?
somebody was asking about fluoridation, and I think the only way you're gonna get rid of that is to be using like a reverse osmosis filter.
Yeah, I have not heard of too many people having problems unless their pH is too high. I don't think fluorination would cause a problem. Although I can tell you that I've lived on well water for the last 30 years.
So I live in, where are you located?
Northern Illinois.
Okay, so I live in Milwaukee. I'm in the city limits, but I down in my whole laundry room is now a grow room, and I have 2 huge pitchers that I fill with water and I let them sit out so that
Yeah, that'll get rid of the chlorine. Yeah.
But I have to start doing more of what you're suggesting, because I tried baking my seeds, my pro mix, and I still have the fungus gnats
Oh,
everywhere.
really? So
But I think Polly
are
said
you
something
growing
to
in?
me. Polly said something to me about cinnamon, I think, or
Yeah, you can put some cinnamon onto the top of the soil, and that'll try to keep the the eggs from the gnats.
the bug comes out of the dirt and gets burned.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever the fungus gnat eggs are, basically
Okay.
the cinnamon will
Yeah, so
minimize
that
that.
was a
But it
great
is hard to
tip.
deal with that if you're, yep. So
And so these tomato plants and everything that you're growing them in the big netty pots with the big pots.
no. So the tomatoes, you can, and we have people that have done that, but I actually like using the coconut coir vermiculite mix
Okay.
for the tomatoes.
And
Yep.
that's even better, because I don't know if everybody knows this, but peat moss is not a sustainable product. So the coconut coir is a better option.
Yep. All right, next question. Are there any more?
Somebody had their hand raised and I don't remember. Lisa, did you have a question? Maybe she's not even here. Somebody was asking about
Okay.
are the seeds non-GMO or heirloom, and I think any of these websites, I put up True Leaf Market, because they also offer, you can buy them up to 25-pound buckets of seeds, so you can check there and you can select organic if you want. And so yes,
Yep,
and then
organic seeds work.
Melissa asked, does this lighting work for strawberries and blueberries?
I've been spending a lot of time on strawberries recently, and the lighting works great. In fact, we have a customer in North Carolina called Handpicked Nursery, and he's a strawberry, I buy all my strawberries from him, and he has all of our lights for, his strawberries. My challenge is strawberries is I get one good harvest, and then figuring out how to keep them propagated has been my challenge, because then you gotta remove the little runners and you gotta replant them. So I can't say that I'm not willing to say that I have an expertise in strawberries yet. I'll get one good harvest, but then understanding how to keep it going is somewhat the challenge. But the lights work great. I could tell you that you could put strawberries into a container and the lights, will produce nice big strawberries for you. So the lighting is not a problem. It's just figuring out how to propagate them using hydroponic methods that I'm still figuring out. If you're willing to do it in coconut coir, or I shouldn't say that, in potting mixes, then this, the lights will work great for you.
So
I have not
somebody-
tried blueberries. I have not tried blueberries. I'm doing raspberries indoors right now as well, but
So somebody was
What's that?
asking if those LED lights emit EMFs.
no, EMF is electromagnetic
Radiation,
frequencies.
yeah.
And no, because the light itself is the same wavelengths as visible light that you see. So if anything, EMF would be given off by a switching power supply, but ours doesn't do that. The other question I get is, does it give off UV or anything harmful? And the answer is no as well. We do not put any ultraviolet LEDs into our lights because I figure there's really no reason to say that it's highly beneficial to plants for food plants. For cannabis, I know that there are people that are trying to put UVA and UVB into them, but I also consider those dangerous. And I typically do not want to put LEDs into our lights where somebody can point it at your skin and get a burn. So we do not put any UV in. It's strictly visible light. It's all within the same spectrum that you see from the sun.
So, yeah, and Pat said, what chemical is in your LED lights?
There is no chemical. Well, LEDs themselves are indium gallium nitride. The red ones are, there's two different kinds of LEDs. There's blue LEDs and red LEDs. And that's there's no chemical per se. The process of making them, any LED goes through a process called epitaxial growth, but that's all done at the factory to make the LED itself. There's no chemical per se in them.
Also,
Yeah,
Frankie,
fluorescent lights obviously have mercury. Yeah.
Frankie said, so these lights can
There's
make,
no mercury.
but these lights can make button mushrooms, make vitamin D.
I've not personally tried using them on mushrooms. I was very marginally successful with mushrooms, but I have been told that mushrooms can use some forms of light, but I would not be a good one to ask about growing mushrooms with lights.
All right, Frankie, so now you've got your task. Grow some mushrooms and we'll get them tested for vitamin D. Wow. So somebody mentioned that LED lights are not recommended for folks prone to seizures. Have you heard anything about that?
That used to be a problem early on when they tried to actually turn the LEDs on and off at 120 hertz, where the original generations of LEDs, they didn't use a DC power source. And what they did is they tried to use a switching, they used the wall frequency out of your wall. And what they do is they would invert the sine wave and it would give you 120 hertz. And that was a problem probably 8-10 years ago. So now good quality LEDs are all driven directly off DC. There is no frequency, right, coming out of them like there used to be. And that was a concern many years ago. Well, when I say many years ago, 5 to 8 years ago. So now all of our lights run directly off 24 volts DC. So there is zero flicker.
Thank you for that.
All I remember is from the Andromeda strain.
Yeah.
Remember the movie where she's running down the hall with the lights flashing and
Oh yeah.
I always say on these calls that I always learn something new. And today, man, I'm learning so much from you. And and like I said, I just loved talking with you at the expo. You were always talking with everybody all the time. And
yeah, I enjoy it. I can't, at the end of these shows, I can't talk. The next day my voice is gone, but I really enjoy it. So.
Well, what we're going to do is I will be posting this up on YouTube And I'll be sending everybody out a link, and then I'll put all, and I send out an e-blast with all the links that were in here, and I re-listen to the thing and try to put in all that information, and I'll send you guys a copy of that so you can
Great.
share that. But I really just want to thank you guys for coming on, and you guys, I have his lights and they are great. He's even got this, do you still sell that little itty bitty one?
No, we don't. You know,
Oh.
we had a hard time making it and actually,
Well,
No, you had-
I told Polly, it's somewhere in my house. I can't find it, and I'm really mad. I've been looking everywhere for it because it, you know, you can put it in like this little itty bitty spot. And the difference between his lights and those cheap ones that you can find on Amazon is like night and day. So
yeah, and that's our challenge, is getting the word out. So Ann, I think I may have one or two of those sitting downstairs, so I may give it to Polly and have her send you one.
all right, thank you. So yeah, I put a garden window in my kitchen when I had my windows replaced. So my goal is to get some, I think I need to supplement the light in there because the plants are trying to really lean.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm gonna definitely, you have changed the way I'm gonna start doing a lot of things here. So thank you so much, and thank you,
just call us if
Polly.
you got any questions.
I
Yeah,
will. And thanks everybody else, and everybody have a great night and grow
Yep.
food.
yeah,
All right, thanks
thank you.
everybody.
Bye, bye-bye.